Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Pete's Ghias. In this video, I'm going to show you how to weld a broken clutch tube inside your tunnel, and while you're at it, how to replace your fuel line.
This is where the pedal cluster mounts to the side of the tunnel. I reach my finger in here, I can feel the opening for the clutch cable tube, and it's broken right here. It's broken off the mount. It's also supposed to be mounted right underneath the opening for the handbrake, and you can see right there, it's broken off. And it's also supposed to be welded into the back. In fact, I think the only thing holding it in place is the fact that it's clipped onto the fuel line. So unfortunately, the only way to fix this is to weld, and the only way to get a welder in there is to start drilling some holes.
Okay, I'm going to drill a pilot hole to center my larger drill.
This drill is kind of a tinker toy. It's good for hanging pictures, but it's not doing much on steel. So I'm stepping up to a real drill, and it also helps to have good quality drill bits.
Okay, so the manual says to measure back 20 centimeters and to cut a triangular wedge like that, and then bend the metal back so basically you have a flap, and then weld the clutch tube back to the bracket that way. But I'm not going to do that. I've decided that I'm going to drill a bigger hole in here so I have more room, more access, and also allow me to work on cleaning out some of the rust and gunk out of the tunnel. And I'm also going to put a new fuel line through there, so that'll give me more space to work. Definitely wear eye protection for this one.
This is definitely not the right tool and probably a little dangerous, but I'm fully committed at this point, so I'm showing you my mistakes so you don't do the same.
All right, well that's going to be a real bitch to weld shut. Maybe I should have used a different tool, but this is what I'm dealing with. Okay, if you look down inside here, this is the loose clutch tube that I have to weld back onto this bracket. And here's the fuel line, touching with my finger right here. When I drilled this circle out, it was stuck onto the bracket right here. I'm just gonna have to flatten this down. I'll spot weld this back onto the bracket, and I'll weld this shut once I'm ready. Alright, well that tool just bit the dust. Just so I can get this bit out of here.
Getting the tunnel open is a little tricky back here. The critical part is not cutting through the heater cable conduit tubes that run along the side. This handheld hacksaw works, but a 3-inch cutoff wheel might go faster.
Okay, so looking inside the tunnel, right here, that's the bracket. That's supposed to be welded onto the left side of the tunnel, and it's broken off right there. And I'm also noticing that the clutch tube has been like pushed forward somehow because it's off center by about a half or a quarter of an inch. So I need to slide this tube backwards in the tunnel and then re-weld that bracket.
This is my first pass at welding the tube, but it's not successful.
This area in here is super tight and really hard to weld in. It's just this top thing is in the way, and it's really hard to fit the welding nozzle in there. But I got the original bracket welded to the side of the tunnel, but I don't think that's going to hold. So found this bracket, I bent it, and I drilled another hole in it, and I cut it to size, and it's bent to fit the wall of the tunnel. So I'm going to weld the leading edge against the bottom of the original bracket that's wrapped around the clutch tube, and then the back of it is going to weld against the wall of the tunnel. So here I go.
My welds won't win any beauty awards, but they are strong and have good penetration, so I'm moving on to the rear.
Let's see, wiggling. So that little hole right there is where the old spot weld was.
So I need to put another weld here. It's a pretty tight area though. So the first thing I need to do is to sand a little bit of this powder coating. I want to get to bare metal here so I can have a clean weld without any contamination. I have a pretty good grasp of the basics of welding, but I need a ton more practice to make my welds look halfway decent. All right, let's take a closer look and see what's doing. The tube is on there tight. The important thing is it's not going to move. The length of this, as it sticks out from the back of the tunnel, is really important. If you want to make sure yours is right, it sticks out 1 1/4 inches. If the length of the clutch tube was off, that would affect the dip in the Bowden tube and could lead to clutch chatter. So it's a good thing to check and correct. The front of the clutch tube is in position, and that gets a quick weld to finally secure it in place. I don't think anyone expected the car to be on the road for 60 years, so it's not a surprise that these old welds have failed. All right, so my next step is to replace the fuel line through the tunnel. And that's going to be made easier by the fact that I've already drilled and cut 2 big holes in the tunnel to fix my clutch tube. So I'll have access inside the tunnel to remove the old fuel line, which I did. I've already pulled out the front of it. And I can also feed the fuel line in through the back to the front, and I'll be able to strap it down inside the tunnel with some stainless steel zip ties. And I can also feed it through the bracket underneath here, which I've already cleared out. What I did was I stuck a drill bit. You can feel it with your finger. You can feel with your finger inside there for the bracket underneath here, where the fuel line feeds through. And what I did was I widened it a little bit with a drill bit. I just stuck it in there and wiggled it around to create some space for the new fuel line. And what I'll do is I'll feed it through here, and then it's going to come up through here at the top of the frame head where the fuel line comes out. Now you could do this from front to back. If the body was on it right now, that's how I'd have to do it, because there'd be really no space in back to feed the fuel line through the hole. So you'd have to go from front to back and have it come out this way. But in my case, I'm going to do it backwards. But you do it any way you like. So as the original fuel line comes through the top of the frame head, it has a curve to it. It comes out straight, then it curves up and to the driver's side, and then it curves up. And the reason it has this bend to it is so that the shift rod, when it goes through the inspection hole at the top, can go past it without colliding into it. That's something they did in the factory. So I'm going to try to recreate that the best I can. This is some tape to cover up the opening in the fuel line so it doesn't get fouled up with junk inside the tunnel. But right now, I'm going to feed the new line through the tunnel. And this is a stainless steel line. It's 1/4 inch. Okay, so this is kind of a pain in the neck, to be perfectly honest, because it's so tight in here. So there's the handbrake cables, 1, 2, 3, 4 heater control cables. There's the accelerator tube that runs through here and the clutch tube. So there's a lot of tubes running through here already, so it's really easy for this thing to get tangled up as I'm trying to feed it through. I feel like I cleared something. I've got it part of the way through. I just need to feed it up through the front. I reach in and feed it from the rear to the front, being careful not to cut my hands open on the freshly cut metal. Should not go through the shift rod hanger. Get around that. Okay, here it is. And what I'm going to do is feed it through this bracket underneath here. I don't think it wants to fit through with this tape in the way, so let me try to take some of this tape off. Here's a cutaway of the tunnel from beneath to help visualize the path of the fuel line through a loop under that bracket. All right, there it goes. All right, so what I've done is I took some old fuel line, put it through here, taped it to the end of the new fuel line, and I'm going to use that to draw it out.
Okay, there it is.
I'm using stainless steel zip ties and secure in the front, middle, and rear. I bought a new pair of angled pliers so I could reach in and squeeze that loop tight around the new fuel line, locking it permanently in place. All right, well, that looks like that did the trick. Final step is to weld the hole shut, grind down, clean, etch prime, and paint. To weld your clutch tube in place, you absolutely need to open the tunnel. You can do it with the body on, but you'll have to pull the carpets and seats out and put blankets up to protect the interior from weld spatter. And to replace the fuel line, you don't necessarily need to go inside the tunnel. You can do it in the interior of the car. Just run the new fuel line along the edge of the floor pan and the tunnel, same way they run the brake line. Just do it on the passenger side. Hopefully this video was helpful to you. Please leave a comment. Don't be too harsh about my crummy welding. You can like the video, you can subscribe, you can share, all the good stuff. And that's it, the video's over. Now I'm scratching my head awkwardly on camera. I'll leave you with this final thought. If you like to go slow, and if you like to go slow in style, get yourself a Karmann Ghia. You'll be sorry.
It's a waste of money and a waste of time. Italian bastard child.